Hello, everybody. In Chapter 2, we're going to be talking about e-commerce business models and concepts. So let's start off with a little bit of a discussion here. We're going to be talking about Twitter, which is in the first kind of portion of Chapter 2. So there's a really good kind of case about Twitter for you guys to read. Definitely read that. It helps you in understanding Twitter's business model and kind of how they function on a day-to-day basis. What characteristics or benchmarks can be used to assess the business value of a company such as Twitter? Have you used Twitter to communicate with your friends or family? What are your thoughts of the service? What are Twitter's most important assets? And then, which of the various methods described for monetizing Twitter's assets do you feel might be most successful? After you kind of get done reading about Twitter, you'll have kind of a better idea of, for each one of these questions. But just kind of overall, as far as characteristics or benchmarks that can be used to assess the business value of a company such as Twitter. When initially Twitter came out, it was this great technology, really cool social network along the same lines of like a Facebook. Except the cool thing about Twitter, it was real time. Everybody was going out there for a lot of like news, breaking events, that sort of thing, and it's still used for that type of thing. But to make money off of it, they kind of had to figure out, do we want to do advertisements? Do we want to sell off data? What can we do to pump up the volume of our revenue? So they ended up kind of going the route of selling off advertisements, which is kind of a huge portion of where they earn their revenue at. And as far as benchmarks for that, I mean they're pretty much just kind of saying we want to earn X amount of dollars. Here's much how to as for how much advertising we need to do, and then they can assess kind of how effective those advertisements are on Twitter. How many people are clicking on the links for it. Are a lot of people viewing the advertisements? Or are they just kind of passing on by, that sort of thing? So those are a couple of like benchmarks and characteristics that they can look for their model for the time being. So I'm assuming most of you have probably, used Twitter. I'm assuming that all of you have at least heard about Twitter. So, if you haven't used Twitter in the past, I would highly recommend getting out there and just kind of figuring out, what Twitter is all about. It's a great way to keep in touch with the world, just because there's so much breaking news that happens on Twitter. Where, it used to be you'd have to wait for, the 6 o'clock evening news or the newspaper the next day, whereas now breaking news happens on Twitter, and that's what you'll see. Most news channels, they have kind of a line at the bottom of the screen that has tweets throughout the day, for breaking news. So it's so weird because Twitter was supposed to be this cool social network, and it's almost kind of turned into just more of a news kind of making machine. The only issue with that is you have so much outside influence with how people can get different hashtags trending and everything, and there's a whole algorithm to that, so you can kind of I guess dirty waters, if you will, depending on how much influence that you have. So it's not the most reliable news source, but it definitely is a news source that's very important for kind of the world that we live in today. As far as Twitter's most important assets, I would say the users are the most important assets that Twitter has, just because they have so much influence in how anybody can have a voice on Twitter, and that's essentially kind of how they're making the money, as well as through their users, and being able to go to advertisers and say, we have 1 billion users, and they're going to be able to see your advertisements on there. So I would say overall that's their number one asset. And then as far as the various methods described for monetizing Twitter's assets, do you feel might most be successful? I think definitely their ad revenues are going to be the most successful out of that. So be interesting to see kind of what you guys think about it after you get done reading the first part of Chapter 2. So as far as business models, a business model, that's just a set of planned activities designed to result in a profit in a marketplace, and then a business plan that describes a firm's business model, and then you've got an e-commerce business model, which is just uses or leverages unique qualities of internet and web. So pretty standard kind of business terminology here. There are 8 key elements of a business model, and we're going to go through each of these in a little more detail here following. So you have a value proposition, a revenue model, market opportunity, a competitive environment, competitive advantage, market strategy, organizational development, and then you also have your management team. So for your value proposition, the thing that you're going to be asking is, why should the customer buy from you? So a successful e-commerce value proposition, so personalization or customization, reduction of product search, price discovery costs, and then facilitation of transactions by managing product delivery. That kind of initial question, why should customers buy from you? Is your product or service, is it cheaper than everybody place else? Does it have a higher quality? So really kind of having that differentiation from your other products, that kind of plays into your value proposition. A revenue model. So overall, how are you going to earn money? Major types of revenue models. So you have advertising revenue model, which is kind of what we talked about with Twitter. Subscription revenue model, so like a freemium strategy. So with subscription, there's multiple examples of that. SiriusXM, that's one. YouTube, they have YouTube Red. And like Netflix, different places like that. Anything that you're paying for a subscription, that's going to follow under that guidelines. You've got a transaction fee revenue model, sales revenue model, and then an affiliate revenue model. Market opportunity. So the question you're going to ask is, what market space do you intend to serve, and what is its size? So market space, that's an area of actual or potential commercial value in which a company intends to operate. Realistic market opportunity defined by revenue potential in each market niche in which company hopes to compete. And then market opportunity typically divided into smaller niches. So as far as your market opportunity, kind of looking around, see, is there different demographics that you're wanting to sell to? Or you want to sell to that, 18 to 25-year-old demographic, or you want to go a little bit older, maybe, kind of baby boomer type of demographic as far as age goes? Is, the product or service that you have, is it, designated towards a certain income level? The individuals that make less than $100,000, are they going to have more value for your product or service than the individuals that make more than $100,000? So it's really just kind of determining on who are you trying to sell to, who is your intending audience, and then making a business model based off of that. Competitive environment. So who else occupies your intended market space? So other companies just selling similar products in the same market space includes both direct and indirect competitors. And then this is going to be influenced by the number and size of active competitors, each competitor's market share, competitor's profitability, and then competitor's pricing. So if you're looking around, the landscape, say, maybe you're wanting to start, a soda company. So you're looking around and saying, I've got some stiff competition between, Coke and Pepsi, but then there are also kind of those, special like niche markets for soda, such as like your Jones Soda, or, in St. Louis area, it Fitz Soda Company. So just kind of looking around and see, how are we going to be able to compete with these, companies? Can we beat them on price? Can we beat them on, overall value? Can we offer something a little bit different than what they're doing? So, definitely looking around your landscape and whatever product or service that you're wanting to create, kind of looking around and seeing, can we compete with what's currently out there? How many competitors are we going to have, and kind of what do we need to do to put ourselves in the best position possible? So competitive advantage. So, what special advantages does your firm bring to the market space? So is your product superior or cheaper to produce than your competitors? So some of the important concepts, asymmetries, first mover advantage, complementary resources, unfair competitive advantage, leverage, and then perfect markets. So, the big one I want to talk about here is, first mover advantage. So that's just being the first kind of company out of the gates with a certain product. So, if you go back to something like a Facebook, the world had never seen anything like a Facebook. There was MySpace, but Facebook just kind of did it better. And then after Facebook, everybody was just kind of, copying what they were doing. We do have, different types of, social media companies that maybe like a Snapchat that's a little bit different, or they're more focused on like pictures and everything. And even Snapchat is a really good example as well, where Snapchat was kind of a first mover of those pictures that quickly go away, and then what's the Facebook company? Instagram. Sorry. So Instagram also developed a very similar program to what Snapchat is. So in that situation, like Instagram would be a fast follower. where they're quickly following something that's out there. And the reason behind that is Facebook had tried to buy Snapchat, and Snapchat wasn't willing to sell. So then at that point, if you can't get like kind of the first mover of it, or the kind of the first one that's out there, then you just try to copy it as best as possible and become a fast follower with it. And then that's exactly what happened with Instagram. So market strategy, how do you plan to promote your products or services to attract your target audience? So details on how a company intends to enter a market and attract customers. Best business concepts will fall or will fail if not properly marketed to potential customers. So just trying to figure out some sort of strategy for your advertising. How are you going to advertise? Are you going to do strictly? Is it going to be online? Are you going to have a little bit of online? Are you going to do a little bit with print? A little bit over maybe like radio, TV, different things along those lines, and just trying to figure out the target audience that you're wanting to attract. How are they going to hear about it? If it's a younger demographic that you're trying to go after, most of the time they're probably going to be hearing about it through the internet and through like social media sites. So maybe that's going to be your best bet for creating a market strategy. Organizational development. So what types of organizational structures within the firm are necessary to carry out the business plan. So this describes how a firm will organize work, typically divided into functional departments. As a company grows, hiring moves from generalists to specialists. So when you first start a company, you might only have a couple of people doing various different things. Everybody kind of has to wear a different hat at that point. But then as a company grows, you get a little more specialized in certain departments. Say you're starting like a tech company where everybody's going to be a programmer, engineer, and somebody's working in marketing at first as well, and kind of everybody's doing a little bit of everything to get going. And then as you get bigger, you're going to have that marketing department. You're going to have that IT engineering department. You're going to have that programming department. So everybody's going to be split up a little bit more, just because you're able to go out. You're expanding in your business, so you're bringing more money in to it, and you're able to hire those individuals that can be specialized in that field, and then they can also just be more well versed and help create a better product or service in the long run. And then your management team. So what kind of backgrounds should the company's leaders have? So a strong management team can make the business model work, can give credibility to outside investors, has market specific knowledge, and then has experience in implementing business plans. So if you are starting that IT company we were talking about in the last slide, reaching out to maybe somebody who has a little more business experience than you do, especially if you're just like a tech kind of background, to where maybe you're just a computer programmer, you don't have necessarily that business experience with it. Going out trying to find somebody who does have that business experience, maybe getting somebody who's an MBA or has an experience working with a finance company or different things like that, and then you can have more of a management structure, and then you can have titles such as chief technology officer, chief financial officer, different kind of titles like that. So it's really important to get individuals that are very well versed into their fields, and they're have a complete understanding of what needs to happen to make the business be successful in the long run. So raising capital, your seed capital, this is going to be your initial kind of, investment, maybe something that you've saved or maybe something that you've, gotten from certain investors. You've got your elevator pitch, which, usually something along the lines of maybe like a minute or two, kind of your pitch to potential investors. You've got other traditional sources such as, incubators, angel investors. You've got commercial banks, venture capital firms, and then strategic partners. Here in Springfield, we have Innovate Springfield. That would kind of classify as, an incubator, along with kind of an angel investors. We do have, plenty of angel investors, and then also venture capital firms here in Springfield as well. And then you also have crowdfunding. So you got the Jobs Act. So we'll talk about crowdfunding here in a little more detail in a couple of minutes. So overall, for a class discussion here, so for crowdfunding, what types of projects and companies might be able to most successfully use crowdfunding? Are there any negative aspects to crowdfunding? What obstacles are presented in the use of crowdfunding as a method to fund startups? So we'll kind of go down the line here and address the first one. So what types of projects and companies might be able to most successfully use crowdfunding? So startups those typically over pretty well through crowdfunding, especially if you have a really cool idea. You know, I'm trying to think of some of the crowdfunding, websites that are out there, like GoFundMe. That seems to be the most popular one at the time. But if you do have a pretty good idea, you can go out there, you can pitch your idea to the world. Hopefully you kind of gain some traction. You can set your overall goal. Maybe you need to raise $10,000 for your project, and then you can watch it, kind of grow, overnight. Um, are there any negative aspects to crowdfunding? I would say the most negative aspect is, is this actually a real project? Or it seems like we see a lot of this in the news where somebody will, do a crowdfunding for, maybe somebody who's, terminally ill or something like that. They'll raise a lot of money for it, and then you find out that that individual wasn't actually terminally ill. It was just a huge lie. So, the same thing can happen for, projects or companies as well, where, somebody might say, hey, I've got this really cool idea for this project. I'm wanting to, I need $100,000 to complete it, and then they'll raise the $100,000, and then they'll say, oh no, like we couldn't complete it because of regulations or laws or anything like that. And then at that point, I mean, you're out your money. I mean, you invested money into this, and the problem with crowdfunding is you're not necessarily an owner of the company at that point. You're just kind of donating, funds to the company. So if they do end up turning a profit on it, you're probably not going to see that profit back. Some companies do different crowdfunding promotions where I'm trying to think. There's a wallet company that came out a couple of years ago called Slimfold wallet, which I ended up buying one. It's a really cool wallet. Might want to check that out if you get some free time. But one of the cool things that they did with their crowdfunding is if you donated $10 to it, you got like a free wallet. If you donated $20 to it, you got a free wallet and like a free koozie or something. And then the more that you donated to it, the more that you got back from it. So there's also been different like music artists who have done that over the years, where they've started crowdfunding projects where if you donate like $1,000 to their next record, they'll send you CDs and T-shirts and different things, and then maybe if you donate $10,000 to it, they'll come and play like a show for you and like 100 friends of yours or something. So there are different kind of models that you can use as far as kind of marketing yourself and trying to get some more funds coming in. And then what obstacles are presented in the use of crowdfunding as a method to fund startups? I would say just overall there are so many startups out there trying to do different things with crowdfunding, so a lot of times you can just kind of get lost in the shuffle. I would say that's kind of a big drawback of it. So categorizing the e-commerce business model. So there's no one correct way to categorize it. So text categories according to e-commerce sector. So you have business to business, and then you also have e-commerce technology, such as like m-commerce or mobile commerce. You've got similar models appear in different sectors. Companies may use multiple business models, such as like eBay, where they're doing they can do business to business, but they're also doing consumer to consumer, business to consumer. So wide variety with that, and then you also have some e-commerce enablers. So for B2C business models, or business to consumer models, so you can be an e-tailer doing strictly business online, a community provider such as like a social network. Are you selling things through like the local like Facebook Marketplace? Content provider, different types of portals, transaction broker, market creator, and then a service provider. So e-tailer, you got your online version of traditional retailer. So revenue model, this is just going to be through the sales. So the more that you sell, the more money that you're going to have coming in. So some variations with that. You got virtual merchant. So you got bricks and clicks, catalog merchant, and then manufacturer direct. So like manufacturer direct, coming straight from the manufacturer right to the consumer. So there was a golf company, Ben Hogan Golf Company, that actually just started doing this here recently. So they used to be a B2B business model where they were selling their products to a business. A business was putting a markup on the product and then selling it from there. And then the company was going bankrupt, and they decided, you know what, the best maybe model to go with is just going to a B2C model for that. So they did a manufacturer direct. So now you can go online, you can go to benhogangolf.com, you can pick out like certain golf clubs that you want, and you can get it at quite a bit less than if you were to go to, say, like a Dick's Sporting Goods or something like that. The quality of the golf clubs are just as good as going to like a sporting goods store or something, but you're saving because it's a manufacturer direct kind of business model. So you're not paying for that middleman necessarily do anything, and they do offer some pretty cool things as far as being able to customize your clubs, which is kind of a huge thing in golf right now. And with that, you do have those low barriers to entry, which is that last one there. So I mean, they didn't necessarily have anything kind of getting in the way of them just kind of doing a manufacturer direct or a business to consumer model. So for a B2C community provider, so this is, provide online environments such as, social network where people with similar interests can, transact, share content, and communicate. So we've got examples here such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest. Some revenue models. So typically it's hybrid, combining advertisement, subscription, sales, transaction fees, and so on. So another one that you can mention out there is like Reddit. Reddit has different communities for buying and selling different things. So I think that's one that's going to be starting to come a bigger presence in the online communities. For a content provider, so digital content of the web. So we've got news, music, video, text, artwork. Some revenue models for this is use a variety of models, including advertising, subscription, sales of digital goods. Use SiriusXM for an example a little bit earlier. So that would be an example of subscription based. Keys to success is typically owning the content. If it's like a music videos or something like that, you want to make sure that you own your own content out there on like YouTube, and then that way you're getting the royalties from it. If not, then you have to split that up between whoever owns the content. And then you've got variations, such as syndication, and then aggregators. Syndication, that's one of the things like what TBS kind of used to be, where they were a syndication station, so they weren't necessarily creating their own TV shows or anything like that. They were just taking like reruns of like Seinfeld or Everybody Loves Raymond or whatever it might be, and promoting it, their TV station, through being able to watch that. And of course, after Netflix kind of came out, or Hulu and everything, they kind of had to go to a different type of business model, to where now they're creating more original kind of works, and not necessarily as popular as it was before. So for the portal business model, we've got Search Plus, an integrated package of content and services. So some of the revenue models with this, you've got advertising, referral fees, transaction fees, subscription for premium services. So variations, so you've got horizontal or general. Example of that one would be Yahoo, AOL, MSN. Most of these companies are kind of going by the wayside, and not many people are actually using those websites anymore. You've got vertical or specialized, so like SailNet, and then you've got search engines such as like Google and Bing. So with those, like Google and Bing are probably going to be the best examples to use for this one, where you can search for something. If you hit like a keyword in there, it might pop up with like a different like promotion or advertisement for something that was somewhat related to whatever you're searching for. So for transaction broker, so this is going to be the process online transactions for consumers. So primary value proposition, so saving time and money. Revenue model is just transaction fees. So industries using this model, so financial services, travel services, and then job placement services. So travel services, think of like Expedia online, to where you can go out, you can kind of pick up, plan your vacation. You can just do it through that one website. They claim that you're able to save some money through it, and then that also helps the like retailers, such as like a Delta airline or anything, help promote maybe some of like the sales and different specials that they have going on at the time. So for market creator, create a digital environment where buyers and sellers can meet and transact. So examples of this one, Priceline or eBay, revenue model, so it's transaction fees, fees to merchants for access, and then on-demand service companies, so they sharing the economy, platforms that will allow people to sell services such as Uber or Airbnb. So service provider, online services. So for example, for that, Google, Google Maps, Gmail, and so on. There's tons of different Google options out there. Value proposition, so valuable, convenient, time-saving, low-cost alternatives to traditional service providers. And then revenue models for the sales of service, subscription fees, advertising, sales of marketing, and data. If we use Google for an example, there they do offer so many different services, such as YouTube. You've got whether like Google Drive, if you need more storage, you can buy storage through them. So they've got different ways that they kind of get you on the hook for buying more with them. So net marketplaces, we've got e-distributor, e-procurement, exchange, industry consortium, and then private industrial network. So an e-distributor, this is going to be the version of a retail or wholesale store, MRO goods and indirect goods. So this is going to be owned by one company seeking to serve many customers. So a revenue model, this is going to be sales of goods. Example of that would be like Grainger. So Grainger is a construction kind of site where they sell a lot of construction materials, whether it be for electrical work, plumbing, different things like that. So so they can serve many customers with that. I worked for a construction contractor in the past, so a lot of the times we would do a lot of work through Grainger, and they have sales reps that come out and they talk to a lot of different industries, such as like heating, air, plumbing, general contracting. Okay, and then we do have e-procurement. So this is going to be creates digital markets where participants transact for indirect goods. So this is going to be business-to-business service providers, SaaS and PaaS providers, scale economies, revenue model. This is going to be service fees, supply chain management, fulfillment services. So the example of that would be Ariba, which is kind of a company that helps with supply chain management. So if you do have issues with maybe like supply chain, or maybe you kind of getting some consulting advice, you can reach out to Ariba. They'll be able to kind of put a program into place and help you out with that. For exchanges, these are going to be independently owned vertical digital marketplace for direct inputs. So revenue model for that one is going to be transaction or commission fees, create powerful competition between suppliers, tend to force suppliers into powerful price competition. A number of exchanges has dropped dramatically. So example of this one would be GoToPaper. They do a lot of paper supplying for things like magazines and catalogs and different things like that. So they're able to kind of go after kind of a wide variety of companies to make sure that they get enough profits coming in, just because they do cover kind of a wide base there, but it is kind of all related as far as paper goes. And then we've got an industry consortium. So this is going to be industry-owned vertical marketplace. Open to select suppliers, so more successful than exchanges, so sponsored by powerful industry players, strengthen traditional purchasing behavior. Revenue model for this one is going to be transaction or commission fees, and then the example of this one would be supply on, which is pretty much kind of like the Ariba that we were talking about just a second ago, where it's kind of like a consulting type of firm, as far as they can put you in contact with different sectors, and then they will take a commission based on that, but they'll also give you some advice who to contact as you're going along. And then private industrial networks. So these are going to be digital networks used to coordinate among firms engaged in business together, typically evolve out of large companies' internal enterprise systems. So, the key to this, trusted long-term suppliers invited to the network. So an example of this would be, Walmart's network for suppliers. So, Walmart has a huge network of suppliers that they've been in business with for a very large or a very long amount of time. So that would be a good example of that. So, how e-commerce changes business. So, e-commerce changes industry structure by changing rivalry among existing competitors, barriers to entry, threat of new substitute products, strength of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, and then industry structural analysis. So for industry value change, you've got your set of activities performed by suppliers, manufacturers, transporters, distributors, and retailers that transform raw inputs into final products and services. Internet reduces costs of information and other transactional costs, and then it leads to greater operational efficiencies, lowering cost prices, adding value for customers. So overall with the industry or with the internet, a lot more options out there, and it's easier to get in touch with different suppliers and retailers and everything, to where in the long run it does create a cheaper product for the consumer, which is kind of what every company is wanting to get at, for a cheaper product, because that means more sales for that company, and that means greater profits in return. So firm value chains, these are going to be activities that a firm engages in to create final products from raw inputs. So each step adds value. So effective internet, increases operational efficiency, enables product differentiation, and enables precise coordination of steps in the chain. So we talked about increases in operational efficiency just in that last slide, as far as being able to reach out to different suppliers with the internet. So enables product differentiation. You can also do a lot of research about different products through the internet and just kind of see what else is out there right now, and then how can you create a product that's a little bit different from that. So firm value webs, so network business ecosystem, so uses internet technology to coordinate the value chains of business partners, and then it coordinates as firm suppliers with its own production needs using an internet-based supply chain management system. Business strategy. So this is going to be the plan for achieving superior long-term returns on the capital invested. That is, overall profit. Five generic strategies for this is going to be, product service differentiation. So just making sure that your, product or service is different than what your competitor is doing. Cost competition. Is it going to be, less of a cost, more of a cost? Overall scope of what you're trying to achieve. Focus on, market niche. So, we talked a little bit earlier about, are you trying to sell to a certain demographic, and then customer intimacy. So, are very customer oriented. What kind of marketing plan do you have to make sure that you're getting those customers, in the door, or providing it with their service. E-commerce technology and business model disruption. So, disruptive technologies, digital disruption, sustaining technology. So the stages involved with this is, disruptors introduce new products of lower quality. Disruptors improve products. New products become superior to existing products, and then incumbent companies lose market share. So, overall, as far as just like a disruptor to introduce new products of a lower quality, so that's, maybe you're coming out with just like an overall cheaper quality of product. More customers kind of go to that kind of cheaper one, just because it is cheaper, that disrupts the market. But then also, with a disruptor, they can improve the products as well, by, saying that, we can do a product cheaper, and we can, make it better in the long run. It also makes, other competitors, improve their products, because if you can get a cheaper product, more than likely you're probably going to get that cheaper product, even if it is a lesser quality. So if you want to differentiate yourself from that, you need to make your product, a little bit better. So that's all I've got for Chapter 2. We will see you next time in Chapter 3.